Okay, welcome everyone. Today's topic is bringing the brightest light to shadow inventory. Okay, so we're gonna be talking about shadow inventory. So what's shadow inventory? Shadow inventory means that somebody, an owner, has lost the property to the bank through the foreclosure process. So eventually, once they missed 2, 3, 4 payments, they enter the foreclosure process, and then after 9 months up to a year and a half, eventually they're going to lose their property if they don't concurrent with the loan. And what's happening right now with the pandemic is that the number of pending pre-foreclosures has skyrocketed. Okay, so by the time the courts open up, all these pending pre-foreclosures are going to enter the foreclosure officially through the court system, but we won't see any of those properties recycling back into the market anytime before next spring or summer. I've heard that courts will open up until September, so the eviction moratorium keeps getting postponed till July. So now I think it's not going to be July, August, sometime in September. That's when things are going to reopen. But again, what you need to understand is that banks are not in the business of real estate. They're in the business of lending. Okay, so they're going to dispose of those properties, and that's an opportunity for you. And what's extremely powerful is when you buy properties from the banks, you are going to get a special warranty deed. What it means is that any liens, tax liens, mechanic liens, utility liens are going to be removed from the property. So you're going to get a clear property free of any encumbrances. So that's extremely powerful. Whereas if you were to buy the property directly from the owner, guess what? You've got to worry about all those liens, okay? You've got to satisfy them. So that is why when we talk to sellers and eventually we get a property on the contract, guess what? Not only do we need to obviously ask the seller any outstanding liens aside from the mortgage, but we also need to pull title on the property, and that's going to show us any outstanding liens on the property. We need to be aware of because we are in charge of satisfying those before we can convey clear title over to us or to an end buyer if we're going to wholesale the property. So that's what I love about shadow inventory or banked on property. So it's off market. Technically, those properties are not for sale. So now the banks, as I said, are going to send these properties off to the MLS through an REO broker, and they're going to send these properties to auctioning websites online, okay? Because they want to maximize their return by having investors overbid against each other so that they can recoup the outstanding balance owed on the loan, okay? So what's the power? Why is this so important? In my opinion, this is by far one of my favorite lead pipes. The reason why is because we bought probably 8 or 9 properties where the bank is selling the properties 50, 60 cents on the dollar. Okay, so we just need to be patient. The cool thing is that we can pay the bank's reserve. Okay, so the bank's reserve is the bottom line, the least the bank is going to sell the property for. And oftentimes, if, for instance, these properties, outstanding balance was 100,000, but the ARV on these properties, 200,000, it doesn't mean that the bank's reserve price is going to be 100,000. It's going to be a little bit higher because they not only need to recoup their 100,000, but they have also incurred legal and court fees and carrying costs on the property by foreclosing on the owner. So most likely the reserve or the minimum the bank is going to take on this property is going to be somewhere in the 120, 130. So what's really critical when buying banked on properties, 2 things. Occupancy. The property needs to be vacant Otherwise, especially with the pandemic, you won't get possession of the property anytime soon, okay? And the eviction moratorium, and that's extremely risky. Not only that, but when the tenants eventually move out, they can dismantle the whole thing, or your $20, $30, $40,000 rehab can turn into a good rehab. So you don't want to take that risk. If the property is occupied, unless you have a cash for keys agreement with the occupants, meaning that you're going to pay them cash in exchange for access to the property and possession at closing. If you don't have that in place, you should not buy those properties. We have skipped maybe 2-3 properties that have a great spread. Like we were going to pay 50 cents on the dollar, very little rehab required, but we skipped them because the occupants were not willing to cooperate. And the occupants could be the owners, it could be the friends of the owners, it could be tenants, it could be squatters. It doesn't really matter. Whoever is in the property at that point, they're not supposed to. So unless you can make an agreement, you should not buy those properties, especially if you're going to use a hard money lender, because they're going to want to have access to the property so they can do an appraisal. If they don't have access to the property, guess what? You are not getting the money. And then if you're getting the money through a private money lender, private money lenders don't necessarily need an appraisal, but it's again extremely risky because you don't know when you're going to get possession of the property. Therefore, you're incurring carrying costs every single month. And then when you use a private money loan, it's typically 4 to 6 month term. So if you won't get possession in 4, 5, 6 months, guess what? You're in trouble, because then you're gonna incur another 2 points for origination. So you can lose a lot of money, in other words. So number one tip of advice, make sure it's vacant. How do you check vacancy? You need to physically go out to the property, make sure that it's totally vacant by peeking through the windows. Most importantly, talk to the neighbors. They're your best resource. They know everything about the property. You'll be surprised how much information they disclose. So that's step number one, find occupancy. Okay, so now let's assume that you found, how do you find these properties? Because technically they're not for sale, okay? So many of them, as I said, have already hit the MLS, and the ones that are on the MLS will for sure also be in auctioning sites like auction.com, hubzu.com. Those are the two major ones. Xome.com, so that's XOME.com, Hudson and Marshall, and Williams and Williams. Those are the 5 major auctioning sites. Now, the cool thing about this is that through our connection in Texas, Jacob, we can pull those properties from the back door and pay the reserve price. So it doesn't matter what people are bidding on these sites, we will only pay the bank's bottom line, which is huge, right? Because I've seen properties that we bought for 150 and the bid was already at 190, 200. But again, so when we get this inventory on a weekly basis, I'm going to show you, and we're going to go through some examples as to what you need to do to find great deals. Okay, so this is where you're going to stand in front of the line, right? So you're going to go all the way to the front, skip the entire line to buy the property. And that's what I love about this, right? Having that connection for us to be able to pull the property from the back door is huge, and has been amazing, because then we save tons of money, right? And most importantly, we never overpay for the property. So let me just give you a quick example. This property on Xome.com, as you can see on the upper left-hand corner, it says current bid 198,000, and then time remaining for the auction on the right-hand side, it says about 32 hours, 1 day, 8 hours. Okay, so think about this. This property is located in Mount Prospect. Mount Prospect is an A neighborhood, very desirable area. And yet, people were already bidding quite a lot for this property. The ARV on this property is somewhere in the $325,000. okay? So think about this. A day still remaining. How much is this property going to sell for? My gut feeling is that people, retail buyers, potential investors are willing to pay somewhere in the low 200s, 230. I think for a retail buyer, they'll be willing to pay for this property up to 250, okay? 260 perhaps, okay? And that's the problem, that you cannot compete with investors or retail buyers who do not understand the numbers, right? Because they're willing to overpay for the property, and that leaves you out of the equation, right? So at this point, when I saw the bidding at 198, let me run my numbers for you so that you understand. So when I looked at this property from shadow inventory, the first thing that I did is I need to find out if this is a good deal, right? So let me show you how we do that. Just a refresher for everyone. We need three numbers: ARV, we need the rehab, and we need to know our max allowable offer. So the most we should pay for the property. So very simple. This is a 3-bedroom, 1-bath property. The ARV in my prospect for this kind of property, 1-car garage, is somewhere in the 300. Let's just keep it 300. Now rehab, the square footage on it's right there, 1,100 square feet. So the way we compute the square footage is that we're gonna multiply this at least times $30 per square feet, because the rehab quality on an A neighborhood is not the same as if you were to do it on a B or C neighborhood. So you've got to make it of a better quality, right? So that it rents or sells for top dollars. So in this case, I'm going to take the square footage, 1,100 times 30,000. So it's going to be somewhere in at least 35,000, but you always have to have a cushion for unexpected. So I'm going to say somewhere in the low 40s, let's say 43K, right? So now, what's the most we should pay for this property to make it a good deal? So I'm gonna take the ARV, and then I'm gonna multiply that times 70%. So 70% of 300,000 is 210. So I'm gonna do the formula: 300 times 70%, and that's equivalent to 210, okay? Minus the rehab. So minus 43, give and take, okay? So that's 7, that's 7, okay. So the most we should pay for this property is 177,000. So think about this. When I check the property in Xom.com, right, and I see that the bidding is at almost 200,000, okay, I would be paying how much? Oh, Rebecca, I missed my math. Thank you. 167. Yeah, 167, right? So imagine there's still 1 day remaining on the auction. So by now, just assume the auction is going to end like right now. As soon as we see the screen, 200,000. People are willing to pay 200,000. So right off the bat, I would be overpaying $33,000. $33,000. I'm going in the negative. Does that make sense? So at that point, it's not so appealing, right? Because our numbers are going to be so tight. Even if it was a buy and hold, the numbers are going to be too tight, paying $200,000 for the property, okay? So imagine, typically, seconds before the auction is finished, that's when people start to bid, okay? And the bid increments are in the 7,000. So the next bid increment is gonna be like 205. So this property, for sure, would sell for somewhere in the 230, 250. I mean, super easy, okay? And as investors, we know our bottom line. So the most we should pay is somewhere in the 170, okay? Taking into account the cushion, the rehab, and all the current expenses. So when I look at 198, in my eyes, it's no longer a good deal. I cannot compete with investors who do not understand the numbers, who do not understand investing. So check this out. When I log on to ChicagoDealVault, let's look at the pre-foreclosure data that we give you access to. So here, the foreclosure summary on the left-hand side, it said status sold to plaintiff. Plaintiff is the bank for 159, okay? So the starting bid is 159,000 on this property, okay? And then this went up for auction back in January 2020. So what happened was, for this property to become bank-owned property, it went to the judicial auction in 1 South Walker Drive, 24th floor, right? People physically showed up, but guess what? Nobody bought the property, so it went back to the bank. So now the bank is going to get rid of the property. So now, here we have the ARV, somewhere in the 280. Okay, 280,000. So DealVault is telling me on the max offer that my flip, if I'm gonna do a flip, the most I should pay for the property is 173. I'm thinking that it should be more like somewhere in the 170, upper 60s, 70. 170 should be the most we should pay for the property. So guess what? The bank's reserve is $161,000. So I'm gonna rewind a bit. See how much the bank took the property for? They took it for 159,000, and coincidentally, that's the bank's reserve. Okay, they were gonna say, you know what? I'm all done with this property. I just want 160,000 for this. When this property is worth close to 300,000, right? So you're basically paying 55 cents on the dollar, right? So the bank's reserve is $161,000, okay? So what it means is that the least the bank is willing to take on these properties, 160,000, which obviously would make sense for any type of exit strategy, whether it's a flip, of course, a buy and hold, or a wholesale. Let me check the price for the wholesale. The wholesale is 159,000, okay? That you can still wholesale the property and make at least a 5% finder's fee. So the bottom line is that we knew that the reserve was 161,000, which automatically met our criteria, and it did not matter what people were bidding online. So the next step is, when I saw that the bank's bottom line was 160, I thought it was a great deal because we're paying 50 cents on the dollar on an A neighborhood. So right away, what we did was we called Mark Goodman. He's not on the line. He's part of the CASHFLOW. Actually, he's part of the Wholesale in a secret group. And I said, hey, Mark, can you please go check out this property in Mount Prospect? I want to know occupancy. That's all I care about. And I want to see if you can peek through the windows to find out the condition of the property. All I want is, don't tell me that, you know, it needs kitchen, bathroom. No, I want to know if it's in a gut rehab state where you only see the studs, okay? Because then the rehab is not going to be 43,000. It's going to be somewhere in the 60, 70,000. If it's medium rehab, I'm okay with it. We're accounting for it. I just don't want to see it like a gut rehab where you just see the electric, the plumbing, raw and then the studs, because then that's a lot of work, right? So he went to the property, and guess what? The property's back door happened to be open. So he quickly did a FaceTime video, went through the property. It obviously needed a new kitchen, a new bath, and that's about it. Obviously, paint, light fixtures, do the flooring. That's about it. The roof was in good condition, really big backyard. So he said, Hugo, it's vacant, and it looks really good. So I said, thank you, Mark. Boom. So we got in touch with our partner from Texas, Jacob, and said, hey, Jacob, let's pull the property. So what we did is we got this property on the contract for $161,000, which obviously match our criteria. So the actual rehab on this property ended up being $38,000. Okay. So actually, indeed, was a home run deal, because we always go by the numbers. And what's extremely powerful is that we're paying, if you think about this, if we paid $160,000, technically this property would have sold online for no less than $230,000, $240,000. So we're basically paying $80,000 below what the competition would be willing to pay, right? And this is incredible resource. I mean, incredible power, bargaining power, where you stay in front of the line, you cut off, and boom, there's no competition, right? So that is why I love this kind of inventory, because not only are we going to cut off in line to pay reserve price and save hundreds of thousands, but we are also going to be able to finance the transaction, because oftentimes on these websites like Zoom, auction.com, when you check the financing status, it says no. That means that you have to pay cash for the property, right? So in this case, when we buy through DealVault under the shadow inventory, we can use a lender. It could be a hard money lender, it could be a private money lender. Okay, so that is the reason why I love this inventory, because we found amazing properties in incredible locations at 50, 60 cents on the dollars, where any exit strategy would make sense. Flip, buy and hold, wholesale. And I can give you many more examples as these, but what I want to show you is on DealVault, where the inventory resides. So there's a question, Alan, how did you get the deal below the online bidding number? Great question, Alan. And it's called connections, okay? So our partner, he's got access to every single property that is bank owned, that is going to the online auctions. And he knows what the reserve price is. So it's a competitive advantage. I would call this, it's an unfair competitive advantage, because when you go to these websites, you never know what the reserve price is. You'll never know that it's 161,000. They'll never disclose that. You will find out once the reserve has been met, okay? But before then, you don't know that. And that's huge, because we know what the bank is gonna sell it for, and we will know right away if it makes sense for us or not, which is huge, right? Because oftentimes, don't get me wrong, I have found properties that the reserve price is ridiculous. Let's say the ARV is 300,000 and the bank wants like 260, 270. I mean, there's no meat in the bone, right? So we skip all those together. So we don't even engage in a bidding war. I mean, we will never engage in a bidding war, but we just don't even inquire about the property, right? So think about this. Imagine all these investors, they have no clue what the reserve price is. So it might be 270,000. And they start bidding, right? They get all this adrenaline, and they know that they don't know that they're going to lose their shirt if they were to win the bidding bid. Okay, so it's very, very dangerous, right? If they don't understand the numbers. So this is the cool part. It's connection. So he can pull the properties behind the door, and it's huge, right? Because he knows all the asset managers at these auctioning platforms, which is huge, right? So yes, Mark, all this shadow inventory is found on DealVault. So before the pandemic, we used to get about 1,000 properties banked on every single week. Right now, it has gone down drastically, right? So I think we got less than 100 this week, but I've seen as little as 20 properties a week. Obviously, that's going to change. As soon as all these pending pre-foreclosures kick in, we're going to go back up to, my gut feeling is that by next year, we're going to be seeing inventory of over 1,000 properties a week. I mean, it's going to be insane, okay? Which is going to push property prices down, but not by much, because right now the shortage of inventory and the high prices, so there's going to be a correction in prices, 10 to 15%, but until sometime next summer, next winter, so not anytime soon, right? So this is the power. There's another question. Are you supposed to click on target? Yes. So I'm going to show you on DealVault where you find this inventory. So when I log on to DealVault, there's a standalone tab that says shadow inventory. Please ignore exact and fallout. We're going to get rid of those two and just focus on target. Okay, so we got this week 156 properties. So this is the column that says target. So you see target right here. That's the bank's reserve price. This is what the bank is going to sell these properties for. So, which is very powerful, because we can have an idea whether it makes sense or not way before the auction starts, right? So we have an unfair competitive advantage, right? So we know ahead of time if the property makes sense or not. So if we find something that makes sense, the first thing that we need to check is occupancy. Now, don't go by what it says right here, vacant, occupied. It's not 100% accurate. I've seen properties that says occupied, but it's not, because people know they've lost the property to the bank and they're going to move out eventually. So some stay and many move out. So even though it says occupied, you have to physically go see the property or talk to the neighbors to find out exactly the status of the occupancy. But this is what's really powerful. Now, what we like to focus on is the sweet spot. Now, Rebecca is saying 50% equity. Let me see. Here we don't search by, oh, I see what you mean. So in this case, yeah, you can use the 50% equity, but what I like to filter by is the target, okay? Because the sweet spot to buy properties is between $100,000 to $170,000. So it's better for you to pay a little bit more for a better location, better quality property with less of a rehab. If you buy properties, like for instance, this property in the 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s, those properties typically are not in the best locations and they're going to require quite a lot of work, okay? And we never buy properties that are like over 200,000, okay? Because those properties are really big and they're like in really nice neighborhoods. So the numbers are not going to make sense for a buy and hold, and for a flip, it's too risky, because oftentimes for those kind of properties that are pretty big, you need to put in a lot of money, over 50,000 in rehab, especially if they're in nice houses, in nice neighborhoods. Like for instance, this in Naperville for $500,000, you know, this is too much of a risk. So the sweet spot to maximize your return and minimize your risk is to focus on purchase price between 130 to 160. So if you buy a property based on what we've bought in the 130, 140, you're going to hit a B plus neighborhood. the minute you pay 150, 160, 170, you should expect to see properties in A neighborhoods, okay? Because again, remember, you're paying 50, 60 cents on the dollar. So that is why when we see those deals, we jump on them. So the first thing that we need to see is a spread of about $80,000 to $100,000. So it's that simple. So for instance, if I was to see this property, just randomly, I pick this property that the reserve price is 130, that property better appraised for somewhere in the low 200,000. So I need to see a spread of $80,000 to $100,000, and the rehab should be less than 50,000 for this to qualify to be a great deal, to have enough meat in the bone for a flip or a rental. If you don't have that spread of 80 to 100,000 between the ARV and the bank's reserve, then the numbers are going to be extremely tight, and it's too risky, obviously. So it's that quickly that we can analyze deals. So we bought properties, let's say in Streamwood, that it's a B plus neighborhood for 130. That property recently appraised for 255. We bought properties in Cicero, two properties in Cicero, one for 90,000, it appraised for 198. Another one we paid 133 and it appraised for 240. So as you can see, we're looking for that spread, okay? And it comes down to paying 50 to 60 cents on the dollar on these properties. But again, we try to focus on B and A neighborhoods because those are the ones that were hit the least with the pandemic. If you go to the C and D neighborhoods, that's where most of the unemployment happened. They didn't get to work from home remotely, so they're typically out of jobs. So you won't get collectible tenants, or you won't be able to get top dollars for your flips. That is why we try to be more conservative and target B neighborhoods, A minus neighborhoods. There's another question. If you don't see, if you see zero for the target, we can inquiry about that. Okay, so oftentimes we don't have the reserve, so we need to send a message to Jacob to find out what the target is. So the way that I like to look at this, yes?
What I was referring to there is if we click on 50% or more equity, it changes the results to 0.
Oh, and the reason why is because right now Zestimate has had issues. Okay, so as you can see, Zestimate is no longer giving a Zestimate value. So we were using Zestimate to get an idea of what the ARV was for the property, but we're switching over to Redfin. So once we complete the switch over to Redfin, then we're going to have a column here with the potential ARV for the property. And by having those two numbers, the Redfin and the reserve, we're going to know how much equity there is, right? So we're going to be looking for properties that have over 50% equity, meaning that, let's say the bank wants 100,000 for the property, but yeah, that property is worth 200,000. So we'll be able to filter them super fast. So yeah, due to Zestimate being unavailable by Zillow, we're not able to use that equity filter. So great point, Rebecca. So the way that I like to look at this is by click on the map option, map view, and that's how I want to look at the properties. It takes us a few seconds because then I know which areas to focus on, which suburbs. So I just zoom in and then look at the reserve price. Again, sweet spot is somewhere between 130 to 160. That's simple, okay? Again, we bought one property for 90,000. Actually, we bought two properties. One in Burbank, we bought for 92,000. It appraised for 200,000. But the rehab was 50,000. So again, we always end up with about 25% at least. That's our requirement, equity on the back end, so that we can refinance if we're going to keep it for a rental, or if we are going to sell it, then we're expecting to make at least a 20% return on the flip. So yeah, that's how I look at them. Or I can just scroll down, go page by page. I can sort by the target, because I'm not going to look at properties that are super, super expensive, over 200,000 for the target. We just skip that altogether, okay? So let's assume that you found the property that you like right away. You don't have much time. You have to physically go to the property. That's number one. Make sure that it's vacant, location is good before you take it to the next step. So we're getting properties even in Indiana, as you can see. So what I like to do here is I like to zoom in, okay? Some of them are super, super far. Bloomington, I mean, that's way too far. So as you can see via the map, it's super, super easy. Like for instance, Naperville, I think this is a super expensive property. Yeah, 596. So I start to go to the areas that I like. So Lincolnwood, like for instance, that's a great neighborhood. Lincolnwood is cocky, so they're asking for 300,000. I mean, Lincolnwood is an amazing neighborhood, but this is a condo, garden unit, so I think it's too expensive. Morton Grove, an amazing area, they're asking for 393. It's on the high end, right? Glenview Des Plaines is a great neighborhood. It's a top rental market, 170,000, but this is a condo, okay? So I don't want to pay 173,000 for a condo when I can buy a single family home in Des Plaines for the same kind of money, right? Condos, the issue is that you cannot control the association. They may not allow rentals. They may impose special assessments. So you're up in the air at the mercy of the association. So we don't feel comfortable with condos. We own only one, but we had a bad experience on another one that we bought in Lakeview, where we thought rentals were allowed and they were not. They were just grandfathered for many, many years. So it was so misleading. So we ended up, instead of keeping that for a buy and hold, we had to sell it. So we flipped the property. We made money, but that was not the intention. So yeah, we don't like condos. So Des Plaines, Evanston, I love Evanston, 393, and that's a condo. So I'm sure it's by the lake, it's beautiful, but it's on the high end. Again, let me zoom in. So this is Rogers Park. That's also a great neighborhood. Edgewater. These are all great neighborhoods. So let me see. Edgewater, Andersonville. 192. This catches my eye, but again, it's a condo. 3E. Let me look at this one. 116. I like this one. Okay. I like this one. Let me click on the one up above. 136. I like this one because guess what? These are 6100 North Sheridan. That's where Lakeshore ends. So location-wise, this is amazing. Okay, so these does catch my eye. So the next thing, if you're going to look into condos, is look at the association assessment, right? Because some of these high rises assessments are going to be over 350 up to 500. So you just have to be careful because assessments can kill your cash flow. Okay. So I'm interested in these two properties. I love these 136. I feel comfortable with that. 116, even better. So, and this is in the same building. So I'm interested in this. So right off the bat, so what I typically do is I copy paste, and then I'm gonna paste it on Google because I wanna see what website. So this is Redfin, Zillow, auction.com. You see, this is in auction.com. So let me see what Redfin says. Okay, so location-wise, this is by the lake. Okay, so Redfin, so check this out. Redfin, it's saying 300,000, okay? And the reserve is, where is DealVault? Reserve is 116. So here, technically, you're paying like 40 cents on the dollar. So this could be a great deal, guys. If this property indeed is worth somewhere in the 300,000. So I'm curious to know the number of bedrooms. So let me go to the details of this property. And in the meantime, I'm going to click on Zillow. Okay, so there's a big discrepancy, right? Zillow says it's 125, but this is a 1 bedroom, 1 bath. So unit 603, it's a 1-1, okay? Um, so it's a small. So I don't think a 1 bedroom, 1 bath is gonna be worth 300,000. Okay, no way. So property, I want to see if they have assessments here, but that's something we need to find out how much the assessments are on this property. So look at this. Zillow is super accurate for the rental estimate, so 1,400. So if you use the rule of thumb, technically you shouldn't pay more than 140 for this condo. So now 125. So if the ARV is 125, then it doesn't make sense to pay 116, right? We're almost paying retail price for this condo. But again, we need to do a little bit more research because then Redfin gave us 300,000, but it didn't tell us how many bedrooms or baths. Okay, so now let's go to auction.com. Let's see what auction.com. Yeah, it says 1 bedroom, 1 bath, 840 square feet. Resale value, so this is typically very accurate, 170,000. I've proven this, what auction.com gives you. So Zestimate is way off, 116, 125. Redfin, it's the extreme, 300,000. It doesn't make sense. But I do trust auction.com resale value. Okay, so 1 bedroom, 1 bath, typically 170. Okay, so let me see if they give you a little bit more information. Current bid at 45,000. Look at this, it says occupied. Okay, that's something that we need to confirm. Oftentimes, even though it says occupied, it's not occupied. If it's occupied, unless you have a cash for keys agreement, it's not a good deal. Interior access, no. So this is what I was showing you about the cash only. It says yes. So auction.com, if they know it's occupied, they won't allow you to do any financing. You have to pay cash or obviously private money lender. And obviously we won't see any pictures from the inside because it says that it's occupied, but this is off of, it's on Sheridan off of Hollywood. So location-wise, it's just amazing. Okay, you're in Hollywood Beach. So let's just quickly run the number. If it's 170, right? Let's find out if it's a great deal. Let's say ARV 170 times 70% minus the rehab. We don't know the conditions, so it's a super small place. So you might end up doing maybe 10, 15,000 minus 15,000. So the most you should pay for the property would be 104. And the bank is asking for 116. So again, we don't know the condition and we need to verify occupancy. And also something that we need to find out is assessments, right? So we would need to look up all the 1 bedroom apartments in this building to find out how much association is, right? Because association is going to tap into your cash flow. So that's how we analyze deals. But again, it's very, very lucrative. Now, if you want to have access to this shadow inventory, you need to have the Blue Angel subscription, which is the yearly. So the yearly is 1,400 per year. Okay, so it's equivalent to 120 per month. So you're going to be saving on the subscription about $20. So once you sign up for the yearly, then we give you access to the shadow inventory. Okay, there's a question by Rob. Does Jacob have access to the FAR properties out of state? Yes, he's nationwide, Rob. But since he knows that we're only in Illinois, he gives us Illinois, some in Indiana. Great question. So if you're interested in the shadow inventory. If you want to upgrade, just send us a message via the chat if you already have access to DealVault, and then we can upgrade your subscription. So all you need to do is send us an email to support@ChicagoDealVault.com and then say upgrade, and then we'll upgrade you to the Blue Angel. So you're going to be saving 20%, and you'll have access to this incredible inventory. Especially, it's an unfair competitive advantage that you're going to have over any investor, okay? So as you can see, we're able to identify deals super fast. If you stick to the numbers that I told you, the sweet spot to buy, between 130 to 160 in great neighborhoods. But when it comes to condos, you've got to be very careful.
Hugo, I have a question.
Yes.
So is the trick to taking advantage of this is to just look at it every day and see what new thing may have popped up?
We do that because Jacob sends us properties Tuesday through Friday. So we typically monitor these every single day just to see what makes sense. But again, using the map view, we can spend 5 minutes. And as I show you on the map, I go to the good neighborhoods, the Plains, Skokie, or the great south suburbs like Old Sip, Berkeley, or the city like Evanston. I know those are like great neighborhoods. I'm all about location, right? Number one. And then you do the analysis on the deal itself. But number one, you've got to focus on location. Like for instance, go ahead.
Can we put the, you were saying 130 to 160. Would it make sense when we're doing our daily search for this to go ahead and put in that price range so that we're not looking at a bunch and opening them up and saying, oh, that one's 300. Oh, that one's, wouldn't it make it a lot go faster if we just put a price range in?
Absolutely. Here you can put a price range. Yeah, I don't want to see properties over 200,000. Yeah, absolutely. That's a great idea. That's a great idea. Yeah, because like we found some, right, in Skokie, these Plains that they were too expensive. Like a condo for 170,000 in these Plains, I think is too much. I mean, don't get me wrong, this Plains is an A neighborhood and it's one of the top rental markets, but still for 170,000, I wouldn't buy a condo. Yeah. So great question, Rebecca. So yeah, if you guys want to upgrade, please send us an email to support. You can also send a text message, SMS, the keyword blue_angel to 818-818. And then you're going to get a link to sign up. If you're still not a member, again, you have 30 days money back guarantee, so you can test drive the inventory, check it out, go out, check out some properties, 30 days money back guarantee. So again, send a text message with the keyword Blue Angel to 818-818, and we're gonna automatically reply with the link for you to have access. Are there any other questions on the line? I just want you to fully understand the power of bank-owned properties, okay? And to never overpay for the properties, never engage in a bidding war. You've got to stick to your numbers. It doesn't matter what people are bidding for, you've got to stick to your numbers. And when you have access to paying the reserve price, then it's super simple because you know your bottom line and you know what the bank is gonna sell you the property for. So it's super simple. All you need to do is physically go check out occupancy and peek through the windows for the rehab, making sure it's not a gut rehab. Out of all the properties we bought from the bank, only one out of maybe 10, 11 was cosmetic rehab, where the rehab was $12,000. The rest of them were medium rehab, so we hit 30 to 50,000, okay, right off the bat, 30 to 50,000 for a single family home. So most of the properties are going to need between 30 to 50,000 for the rehab. Single family, 3-bedroom, 2-bath, or 2-bedroom, 1-bath. That's my experience. But you can get those home run deals, right? where we bought one in Caesar, a 4-bedroom, 2-bath for 130. Rehab was 12,000. It was just, I couldn't believe it, because the flipper had done all the bells and whistles, and the buyer who lost the property didn't have much wear and tear on the property, so it was just a great deal. Mark, so Alan is asking, when we bid you with financing, do banks consider the offer as cash? Yeah, absolutely. You can use when you buy through the target inventory using hard money lenders or private money lenders, Alan. So it's just as cash. So you can have a mortgage contingency. Great question. And then Mark is asking, off-market properties, the shadow property, is there a difference? Oh, great question, Mark. So on the off-market, you also have shadow inventory right here. So the big difference is that in this category, you have to directly talk to the bank's attorney or to the bank to make an offer on their inventory. Okay, so that's the big difference. You have to reach out to the asset manager of the bank, and it's got to be a small bank, community bank. You cannot go after Chase, Bank of America, all the big ones, because they sell inventory bulk. So they won't sell you the inventory, 1, 2 properties. No, they want to move bulk. So that's the trick. You've got to target small community banks to reach out to the asset manager. So great question, Mark. So the really powerful shadow inventory, that is why we have a standalone tab. What does the G stand for? Oh, that's just for Jacob. The source, that's just for him to identify the location, or I'm not sure what that means for him. So we just need to include that. But no, for us, it doesn't have any meaning. Do you provide proof of funds? Yeah, absolutely. When you belong to the CASHFLOW Institute group, we can give you a proof of funds letter for sure.
I have a question, Hugo.
Yes, Rebecca.
I have a question, and I have not looked every day, but I want to start doing that. It seems like I can never find anything that meets the criteria, that $100,000 spread. Is it a very rare thing to find one that meets that criteria that we're looking for?
No, it's not rare. Sometimes we've gone 2-3 months without seeing anything that makes sense. But again, we are very picky, right? And then we just focus on certain locations. Like for instance, we wouldn't go to Will County. I know you're in Will County. We wouldn't go there. Even if we find something that makes sense, our contractors, our crew, they don't go that far. So we stay away from Will County, for instance. So it depends on every investor's preferences. We don't go too far south in Chicago, right? Some people, all they do is invest in the city or South Shore and farther south. So it just depends. On our criteria, we've gone 2-3 months without finding anything, but that's okay because right now we know the inventory is low, but we've had cases where we found deals every single week, but we cannot take them all. So we just cherry pick what makes most sense. So it's just a hit and miss. You don't always know what's going to come. Does that make sense, Rebecca?
Yes, it does. Thank you.
Yeah, no problem. Great question. Sixto, what about Lake County? Will contractors come up to 35? Yeah, will contractors? Yeah, Lake County, yeah, it's easier. For Lake County, yeah, it's a lot easier. Will County, they're not willing to go that far. But Lake County, it's easier, Sixto. So yeah, the key is for you to, number one, understand the location, the market. Number two, understand your numbers. And number three, just identify what the bank is looking for and see if that makes sense. But again, look for an $80,000 to $100,000 spread. The rehab hopefully is going to be less than 50,000, and stick to the 130 to 170, 160 for a great neighborhood. So it's best to spend more time finding better location better quality properties than jumping into anything that comes your way, trying to fit a square peg in a round hole, forcing a deal. No, because then you can lose money. So spend more time finding better quality properties with less rehab. Okay, that's where your time is going to be worth quite a lot. You don't want headaches. So
Hugo,
yes,
oops,
Rebecca.
I
No,
noticed you said you're going to be switching from Zestimate to Redfin. You have
yes.
confidence that, because sometimes when we look at Redfin, it is so different than Realtor.com and Zillow and all the other ones. I've started not trusting Redfin, but you think Redfin is more accurate than the others?
Yeah, Zillow is horrible now, but for rents at the property level, they're amazing. Okay, they're super accurate. That's it. So we still use Zillow just for the rent at the property level, but for the rest, Redfin right now is the most accurate. But we just use that to get a ballpark idea. Okay, again, we give you the ability to pull comps through ChicagoDealVault through the MLS. That's going to be the most accurate resource. But just to get a ballpark, like for instance, for this inventory, I want to have a ballpark idea of what the ARV for the property is. And Redfin is good enough, but still, we need to verify the data. Like for instance, the condo, one bedroom, one bath, no way 300,000. And Zillow 125, that's also not accurate. In that neighborhood, the 170 makes way more sense. If it was a studio, yeah, perhaps 130 it makes sense. But for a one bedroom, one bath in that location, by on Lakeshore or Sheridan, yeah, 170 makes more sense. So yeah, I'm looking forward to releasing that hopefully soon. The team is working on the Redfin piece. And yeah, Rich, I got your message. I'm gonna give you a call. Okay, I took a picture and I do have your cell phone, so I'm gonna call you, Rich. If you guys need a call back, please send me your phone number and then I'll call you. But again, I want to make sure that you take advantage of this inventory. Again, please send a text to blue_angel to 818-818. Okay, just to test drive the inventory, check it out for a month, money back guaranteed, so that perhaps you find a great deal, right? And then we'll help you analyze it and then move forward with it. Okay.
Hugo.
Yes.
So if I find a property out here that's under the auction shadow inventory or the that I want, and let's say um, it's one that could be is it possible to get it with no money down? For example, you see the reserves, you see the I believe it's Mark. No, not Mark. The other guy that pulls them out of the auction
Yeah,
line.
Jacob. Jacob, yes.
So and he wants to make sure that he has, let's say, 5, 7,000, etc., plus the amount that we're gonna give you. So as long as you see that, um, it, it, is it possible to still buy it, at 100%? I mean, will you guys will finance it 100% if everything's under 70% of the ARV?
So great question. So as soon as you pull one property, we need to send like 5% down like the next day. We
Yes.
sign a performance agreement. We need to wire to escrow 5%. So 5% of 100,000 is five to $10,000 that we need to wire the next day.
Okay.
So that money needs to be wired by the member, in this case by you, because we will fund and you'll sign paperwork for us to record a first position lien on the property. But that's after the fact that you have secured the property. Does that make sense? So we cannot give you the money just to reserve the property. So that's something that you do need to have those reserves handy.
So how much would it take to pull it out?
Typically, we've wired between 8 to 13,000. That's like 5% deposit. and then you get credit at closing for it. But that's a way for him to secure the property because he needs to pull all these strings with the asset managers. So he needs some skin on the game, right? So this cannot be just verbally, yeah, pull the property. No, 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 because if he pulls all these strings, then he needs to save face and make sure that you follow through. So that's what we're gonna pay you.
So
So
you
meaning,
follow through and you go to the closing and you
yeah,
have this money down. Everything is under, let's say 70% of the ARV.
yeah,
You'll get credit back for those monies that you put down, right?
yes,
And
yeah.
thus that's how you get the 100% financing, right?
Yes,
Okay, perfect. Thanks.
no problem, Sixto. So yeah, I want to make sure that everyone has access to these because again, we found no less than 10 properties in the last year and a half. Um, through this inventory. So it's extremely lucrative and not being able to engage in a bidding war with other people who don't understand the numbers, right? Because you cannot compete with them. So this is how you can really hit it big when you don't overbid for the property and just pay reserve price. Because again, the bank is not in the business of real estate, they're in the business of lending. So they just want to dispose of the property. Boom. They want to recoup their money. Which is huge, right? It's huge for us because that's where we can truly leverage.
I have another question, Hugo.
Yes.
I was just over on DealVault and I clicked on single family homes so that I could get rid of the condos. And as soon as you click on property type single family homes, it says 0 results.
Oh, property type, single family home. That's interesting.
If you
Condo
click,
townhomes. Yeah, I see that. I just replicated that.
yeah, it looks like a glitch of some kind.
Yes.
If you
Can you
click
send us
all
an email?
types,
Yeah, can you send us an email with that?
okay,
Uh, because yeah, that shouldn't happen. Yeah, if you can please send us an email, that'd be great.
okay.
Thank you, Rebecca. Any other questions? And again, if you need a callback, please send me your cell phone and then I'll call you.
I have a question, Hugo. This is Tim. How are you?
Oh, good, Tim, and you?
All right. So with the shadow inventory, can you go inside with the realtor because it's going up for auction?
So these bank-owned properties have been secured by the bank, but not all of them. So we found out of maybe 10, 11 properties we've done, I would say 50% of the properties are secured, another 50% are not, meaning that their windows open, the back door is open, something is open.
Mm-hmm.
So you won't get like a lockbox or have access to the property. So oftentimes, like the one in Cicero, it was fully secure, like big time secure. So all we did was peek through the windows to check occupancy and talk to the owners. But by doing that, we had a really good idea of the quality of the project of the property, and that was in fact the one that only required $12,000 for rehab. So we went ahead with it because we checked occupancy number one, and we were able to see the kitchen and the flooring, the finishes, and plus online we had seen previous pictures of the previous rehab 2 years ago. So it was just a matter of wear and tear on that property. So we do our due diligence because oftentimes we don't have access to the property.
Okay. And
Yeah,
then I
great
have a
question.
second question,
Yes.
just to piggyback off what someone was mentioning earlier. They were looking to maybe purchase one of these properties. So I understand that if we want to do that, so we would have to come down with 5 or 10% of, did you say the asking price
The reserve
or
price. The reserve
the
price.
reserve price?
Yeah, remember,
Okay.
we are paying reserve price. That's the bank's bottom line. We're
Okay.
never paying what people are bidding online. We'll never pay that because that will just throw this number off, the number off.
Okay. And so if we come down with that, and then DealVault would finance the rest of it until we fix it and sell it?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah. Great questions, team. Anybody else? Okay, so if no further questions, please make sure that you do have access to the inventory so that you can start monitoring those deals that come our way, because you never know. 1 week you can find like a really amazing deal. So, I mean, I just get super excited, right? Just when I see 50, 60 cents on the dollar in a great location that perhaps is vacant. I mean, it doesn't need much work. I mean, it's just easy. So thank you everyone for joining today. I look forward to seeing you all this week. And by the way, we are going to give you a free ticket to the 3-day event coming up in July 16, 17, 18. So what we've done is I bought 120 tickets, okay, for the 3-day event. So there are going to be 2 types of ticket: the virtual that Andrew is selling for 67, and the VIP. Okay, VIP is 167. So you're going to get a ticket from me regardless, okay, and it's free. So I bought 120 tickets. That's for our DealVault community. So if you're interested in a ticket, please send us an email to support@chicagodealvault.com. Okay, I want to make sure that you get the most out of the event because it's super rich in information, and that was in fact our turning point for us, right? That's when we started in real estate about 2.5 years ago. So I can guarantee a ticket for all of you, part of Chicago DealVault, okay? Free ticket. So thank you everyone for joining. I look forward to seeing you tomorrow if you're in the Wholesale Inner Circle group, and if not, on Wednesday we have another webinar, 6:30. And thank you for those of you who came to the live tour on Sunday. It was awesome to see many of you in person and also online. So it turned out to be a great informative event. So thank you all, and I look forward to seeing you on our next event. So have a wonderful evening, and talk to you soon. Send us an email to upgrade or for the free ticket, okay? And then I'll call you back, Rich and Sam. Thank you. Good night.